All right, hello. This is going to be just a short introduction to Don Marx's paper titled Why Abortion is Immoral. We're going to be discussing the thesis and sort of the argumentative strategy that Marcus employs. So, first of all, remember that the thesis is the basic thing that's being argued for in an essay, right? It should come, if it's a good paper, it should come somewhere relatively quick, soon in the essay, the first paragraph or two. Should also show up again at the end of the paper, generally speaking. So let's go ahead and try to identify what Marx's thesis is. So Marcus right away tells us many philosophers working on the problem of abortion and professional philosophers in the academy seem to hold a particular belief about those who take the pro-life position. And that belief is that the pro-life position is generally speaking based on some kind of irrational religious dogma. Or it might be the case that if you hold a pro-life position, then the arguments that you might offer in support of this might be seriously confused or maybe even incoherent. So that's a basic kind of belief that Marcus claims many academic philosophers have regarding the pro-life position. What Marcus says is that he's going to try to undermine that belief. He's going to try to show that the belief is actually false. And he's going to do that by offering an argument in support of the pro-life position, one that doesn't fall into either of those two categories. Marcus also tells us that the primary thesis, the primary thing that he's going to argue for is the following, quote, abortion is, except possibly in rare cases, seriously immoral. But why does Marcus say that it's seriously immoral, not just immoral? Well, consider a case where maybe I tell my daughter that I'm going to go to her soccer game, but I know very well that I'm not going to be able to go. But is it seriously immoral? It's not obvious that that's seriously immoral. Whereas killing somebody it sure looks like that's going to be seriously immoral. And so Marcus thinks that abortion is going to fall into the camp of the same sort of immorality that we would say killing is, rather than maybe keeping or stating a false promise. So that's why he says that abortion is in the same moral category as killing an innocent adult human like you or myself. So that's going to be one main strategy that he employs. This actually gives us a kind of a clue. So what is that clue? Well, you might think that in order to show that abortion is immoral, we're going to have to first show that the fetus is a person. That's a kind of a general way that people will try to argue in the abortion debate. Take, for example, Thompson, who simply just granted for the sake of the argument that the fetus was, in fact, a person from the moment of conception, right? And Thompson did this in order to then argue in support of the pro-choice position. So even if you grant that the fetus is a person, she thought you could still go on and show that abortion, at least in some cases, was morally permissible. But Marcus is going to try to avoid that assumption altogether. And instead, he's going to try to show that abortion is still seriously immoral. Instead, is going to begin with a premise or an assumption that he thinks everyone should be able to agree with. And that's just simply that killing you or me or an infant or a child would be seriously wrong. You might think that even if you take a pro-choice position, you're still going to accept that. And that's an important kind of strategy to employ. It also tells us why he uses this notion of seriously immoral rather than just immoral, right? So what exactly does it mean by in most cases? Well, in a case where the woman has been raped, where she gets pregnant without, consenting, or maybe where her life is being threatened in some sense, you might think that these are cases that are sufficient to show that abortion in those cases are morally permissible. And in fact, even some pro-life positions will grant that. Of course, Thompson's famous violinist case sort of illustrates this point. Thompson even shows or talks about how the extreme view would be one where you say, even in the case where the woman is raped or her life is threatened, it would still be morally wrong. And so what Marcus is going to do is he's just going to bracket those cases altogether. He's not going to even try to address them. This is supposed to be a secular argument, right? So Marcus actually has gotten quite a bit of attention for this over the years. It's a novel argument for the impermissibility of abortion that does not appeal to any religious view. This argument is supposed to be one that secular philosophers should be able to accept. So given that Marcus, if he's successful in his argument, then this would actually be a very powerful argument for the pro-life position. Why? Well, that's because it begins with the premises that both positions should be able to accept. Also, remember that a sound argument is one where all the premises are true and it's valid, right? So remember, sound is just validity plus truth. Here, if all of the premises are in fact true and the argument is in fact a valid argument, then it looks like the pro-choice position has nothing available to do except for to accept the conclusion. Of course, the pro-life position could try to go on and show that there are some kind of objections. Maybe there's an error in reasoning. Maybe there's some counterexamples, and maybe the pro-choice position could appeal to something along those lines to try to show the arguments, in fact, doesn't work. And that's something we're going to have to consider. But first, let's just make sure that we have a really good, adequate understanding of what the argument itself is supposed to say. The basic idea is that abortion is seriously immoral for the very same reasons that killing an adult human is seriously immoral. Well, killing you or me, right? Killing you or me is seriously immoral because, and this is the key point, it deprives you or me, the adult human, it deprives us of a valuable future life or a life of future value. That's going to be the kind of the main thing that Marcus is going to rely on. All right, we also want to keep in mind that we can think about Marx's argument as an abductive argument. Well, what exactly do we mean by that? An abductive argument is one that appeals to the best explanation for some particular phenomenon. In this case, the phenomenon that we're interested in is the killing, and it seems to be wrong. If it is, and we all seem to agree that it is, well, what is the best explanation for why killing is wrong? According to Marcus, when we appeal to the best explanation for the wrongness of killing, it looks like it's going to be that it deprives us of a valuable future life. So again, this is a kind of the key part of Marx's argument. He wants to try to show that abortion is seriously immoral because it's in the same category as killing. And killing is seriously wrong because it deprives one of a valuable future life. So that's kind of the sort of key steps in his argument. We're going to look closer at the structure of the argument as we go forward in future videos.